Welcome to ORCID's March webinar. Today, the spotlight is on the new features in EFT processing for Sage Intacct. My name is Natalie from ORCID, and today Anne and I will present these new features to you. The main new feature is the ability to upload EFT files directly, automatically, to a bank's SFTP server. We've made some security enhancements, the ability to configure which users can download or upload to SFTP an EFT file, as well as the ability to select which payment methods can be included in an EFT file. There are a few usability improvements, including the ability to import EFT Banks, particularly for companies that have many bank accounts. And we're also releasing a new French translation for all the EFT screens. Before we delve into the detail, a quick reminder of what is included in EFT processing for Sage Intacct. It lets you create EFT payment and direct debit files in the format required by your bank. The app is integrated with Sage Intacct payment and receipt processing routines. The mapping engine to transform your Sage Intacct data into an EFT file and all the file formats are shared across multiple products, which means that we can support many banks in over 80 countries, and others are created on request for new subscriptions. We can generate domestic payment files, cross-border payments, positive pay files for checks in the US, wire payments, NATCHA files, CPA 005 and their variations in Canada, SEPA files, both for supplier payments and direct debits in Europe, ISO 222 for a range of banks and countries, BPay in Australia, etc. And now, this file creation process also supports automatically uploading the file to an SFTP site. The EFT bank details, both your own bank details and the vendor, customer and employee banking details, are held by EFT processing within Sage Intacct. Nothing is held on a third-party site, and we support user-definable screen labels to reflect the bank terminology, validation of the data that is entered to make the data entry easier. There are a range of security features like extensive audit logs of the EFT files created, as well as changes to the banking details. We use industry-leading WebAssembly technology to do the mapping in your own Sage Intacct environment. And we have now added more granular security rights within Sage Intacct. EFT processing is developed in the Sage Intacct environment, providing a familiar Sage Intacct look and feel, plus standard security and customization capabilities. All data is stored within Sage Intacct, and we now have a French translation available for users whose preference is French, Canada French, or French from France. The process to generate an EFT file starts with entering and posting and approving your payments in Sage Intacct. In ORCID's EFT processing, still within Sage Intacct but on the ORCID's menu, you can select which payments you want to include in this run of file and generate the file. For each file, you can then download the file, and what is represented in 4B in this diagram, import, upload the file to the banking software. Or if you have configured the bank to use SFTP, then the file will be automatically uploaded to the SFTP site, most generally the bank's SFTP site. Finally, when the file is successfully processed, you can confirm the file to finalize the payment process. So first, I'm going to hand over to Anne to demonstrate how we can upload EFT files to the bank's SFTP server and how to configure the bank to do so.
The first new feature in the March 2026 product update that I'm going to run through is the ability to upload an EFT file to an SFTP site. Using Orchid's EFT Processing for Sage Intacct, you are able to select payments, whether those are AP payments or AR payments or employee reimbursements. You are able to select the payments and generate an EFT file. Previously, you could just download that file and then manually upload it to the bank. But now we are able to upload the file directly to the SFTP for the bank if the EFT bank has been configured accordingly. So how does this work? First, you need to subscribe to Orchid's SFTP service, and then you need to configure the EFT bank to use SFTP as opposed to download as the destination type. And then when you click download, well, the button will actually say upload on the EFT file list. When you click upload, the file is automatically uploaded to the FTP site. And our SFTP service supports SFTP with a user ID and a password, and a user ID and a password with a key file, with or without a key file password. The reason you'd use SFTP is because the file transfer protocol is very secure. It's quicker and easier to upload to the bank. There's less clicks. You don't have to log into the bank software to upload the file. And the EFT file is not saved on a local drive at any point in time. If you are using a key file, then you would upload the private key into the EFT bank record in Sage Intacct. There are a number of tools that you can use to generate your private key, and this example is using Putty. The public key is on the bank's FTP site, and you need to use an open SSH key using the RSA format. So let's take a little look at this in Sage Intacct. If you have a subscription to SFTP on your EFT license, you will have the feature SFTP enabled. And when SFTP is enabled, on your EFT bank record, you will have a tab to configure SFTP. So for my 100 CHK payments, I have configured to SFTP the file. That is my SFTP address, my username and password, and I'm not using a private or a public key. But if you were, you would upload your private key here and key in the key file password if you have one. And then you need to specify the destination for your files. So on the SFTP site, the files for this bank are being uploaded to the Natcha IAT directory. And on the EFT file list, for those banks that are configured for SFTP, for example, Natcha ACH IAT, you can see that the button is now saying upload as opposed to download. Whereas this particular record for my payments for the Natcha SB file format, it would be a download and then manually upload to the bank. And if we are ready to transfer this file directly to the bank, we could click on upload. The file would be generated and uploaded to the bank's SFTP. And once the bank confirms that that file has been transferred okay, and you can see the status is now exported, you would come back and confirm the file. There are a number of security enhancements in the new product update for EFT Processing for Sage Intacct in March 2026. The first one I'm going to go through are the new permissions for EFT Processing. We have added new permissions for users to be able to download or upload to SFTP the EFT files. So you may have access to the EFT file list, but you may not have permissions to download or upload EFT files. You need to go to the new EFT permissions screen and per user indicate if they can download or SFTP an EFT file when the status is confirmed, and if they can download or SFTP an EFT file when the status is new or exported. When you first apply the product update, all the permissions will be blank. So you will get a message for any user going to the EFT files that you need to configure the EFT permissions to enable users to save the EFT file or download or SFTP and to contact your system administrator. So let's have a little look at this now. We have a new EFT permissions screen. And here, per selected user, you need to indicate whether they can download or upload an EFT file when the status is new or exported. So this is before the file is confirmed, if they're allowed to download or upload this file, and or whether after the status is confirmed, can they download or SFTP the file. So if I have no permissions for Anne, and I go to the ORCID EFT file list, if I try to upload or download the EFT file, you'll see I get a message, you don't have permissions to upload or download the EFT file. And if I do have permissions to download or SFTP a file when the status is new or exported, then on the EFT file list, I am able to upload a file or re-upload a file if the status is new or exported. And that applies to download as well. But for a confirmed EFT file, I don't have permissions to download this file once confirmed. But if I select both these options for a user, then on the EFT file list, I am able to upload a file with the status is exported or new. And the same applies to the download. And for confirmed EFT files, I'm able to download them too, or SFTP. The next new security enhancement is the ability on the EFT bank record to select which of the payment methods you do want to include in EFT. Prior to the March 2026 release, all transactions, all posted transactions against the customer, vendor, or employee for a configured customer, vendor, employee, and bank, all the payments would be on the EFT AP payment requests or AR payment requests or employee payment reimbursement requests. But now you can say only EFT or record transfer payment methods must appear on the associated payment request screen. And this payment method relates to the payment method that you choose when you post the payment. In this example, paying AP invoices. And what is the payment method on the resulting posted transaction. This will help you control which payments are included in the EFT file. Having a look at this within Sage Intacct, on the EFT Banks record, per bank, per payment type, receipt or payment, you would configure which transactions you want to see. So first, looking at our NACHA format for our 100 CHK bank account, Here we have configured to only allow EFT or record transfer payment methods in this particular file. However, when we look at our positive pay format for our 200 CHK bank account, we only want to include printed checks. So this allows you to do a one-off printed check for a vendor who's configured for EFT, but it will not be included in the file, thereby providing additional security around your EFT transfers. And finally, we have added the ability to mask the fields for account number and branch number and any field that you want, to mask them and only show the last 4 digits or last 4 characters of that particular field. So in this example, we have said the BSB number mask is asterisk and show the last 4 digits, and the account number mask is asterisk and show the last 4 digits. And this applies to vendors, customers, and employees. The record in the database will be saved with the full unmasked account number and branch number in this case, but anyone editing on the screen will only see the last 4 digits after saving the record, and anyone viewing the record will only see the last 4 digits and the masked character. And this masking can be applied to any of the fields in the EFT file format. For example, bank extra 3 or bank extra 4 or IBAN number or BIC number. Having a look at this in Sage Intacct and using AP vendors as an example, if we go ahead and edit this vendor who is configured with the CAN CPA format, we can see on the ORCID EFT tab that the financial institution ID is masked, as is the account number, and we see the remaining 4 digits. If we go to edit this, you can see we see the full number as we're typing in. But as we tab off, the field is masked. Same with the account number. And we could apply this to any of the extra fields that get turned on, the vendor, customer, or employee. And it is these 2 mask lines in the associated EFT file format, CAN CPA 005, BSB number mask equals *4, and account number mask equals *4, that provide this functionality on the screen. And finally, please feel free to reach out to us if you need our assistance in applying a mask to any field on the vendor, customer, or employee EFT details screen. In the March 2026 product update, we have done a number of usability improvements. And the first one that I'm going to show you is the ability to import EFT bank records. So we have enabled the import functionality under the EFT Banks in the menu. First thing you need to do is prepare the import file, and for this you can use the EFT Bank import definition spreadsheet that we have in the online help, and you can download that, insert your records, and then using the import option in the EFT Banks menu, you will be able to select the file, map the fields, save the map if you want to use that same one again, and then run the import. And this is what I'm going to show you now. We are going to use the new import feature for the EFT Banks to import new bank/format relationships. So first, before importing, we will go to the online help and download the EFT Bank import template definition and set up our records in that file. So here we can see all the fields that we need to fill in on the EFT Bank. And in this case, it's going to create a new EFT Bank record for the CAN CPA 005 for payments. And I'm going to insert the same file format for my 700 CHK bank format and my 800 CHK bank format. So most of the fields stay the same. My payment methods can be specified, and I've got a different EFT file name. And if you are setting up for an SFTP bank, you can fill in those details too. But the key file needs to be imported on the EFT bank record or uploaded on the EFT bank record. So once we have our template, we can save as a CSV.
Back in Sage Intacct, I can go to the ORCID EFT Banks import menu, select my CSV file. I'm going to do an online import. I can map the field one by one. You can see the column heading from the file, bank name, and then you can save the map, but in this case I have already saved the map. So all my columns are mapped successfully. You can go import, and the import has been successfully processed. It has created 3 records for 600 CHK, 700 CHK and 800 CHK, CAN CPA 005 as per the CSV file. And on my EFT bank screen, I'm filtering by the CAN CPA format, and I can see I've got 600, 700 and 800. We've just seen how we can now import EFT banks using the template provided in the online help. The next series of usability improvements relate to EFT for AR, and we've added new columns to the EFT AR payment request as well as to the Create AR payment screen. You can use ORCID's EFT processing to create EFT files for direct debit of customer bank account. We've added the AR payment reference, so the document number or the check number, to the EFT AR payment request, where you select which payments you want to include in your direct debit file. But ORCID's EFT also include a feature to create AR payments in bulk, so that they can then be included in a file. On that screen, we've added the AR invoice description and reference. You can use those fields to filter the records that you want to include. We're also displaying the customer file format that's configured on the Customer ORCID's EFT tab. Again, you can use this to filter records. When creating the AR payment, you need to select the payment method and the bank and the receipt date that you want to use. We've now also added the ability to include a document number for that payment, also a check number, which will then be visible when you select the payment in the AR payment request screen. So let's have a look at this in Intacct. First, on our ORCID EFT main menu, we can use Create AR Payment to create AR payment in bulk for outstanding invoices. We can use all the fields on the screen here to filter, and one of the new fields is the invoice reference number, which we can use to filter. Reminder that our filters can use equal, not equal, starts with, ends with, contains, does not contain, etc. So in this case, we can choose contain. I is going to filter based on that invoice. I can select the invoice, the amount to receive, defaults to the total amount due, but I can change it if I only want to direct debit a part of the amount. And what we can do, we can also see the EFT file type here, and I can add a document number for that payment. I can then select my payment method, record transfer, to create an EFT file, select my bank account, set my receipt date. In this case, it will create one payment. So let me select 2 payments. So payments have been created for those outstanding AR invoices. They've now dropped off the list here. I could view them in accounts receivable, posted payments. I go to Orchid's EFT AR payment request. I can see the payments that I've just created here for AG Insurance and Sakasend Finance. One for Nirvana I had created before, plus others that have been created before without any check number. But this column here, payment document check number, is new. And again, you can use that to filter. And to complete the process, so back here I can select the 2 payments that I've just created and generate my EFT file. One of the new features in Orchid's EFT processing for Sage Intacct is the French translation. With the new installation, if a user's language preference is set to English, all field labels and processing messages will be in English. If a user's language preference is set to French, that is both French France and French Canada, all field labels and messages will be in French. One thing we cannot translate dynamically is the menus. So if you want the menus in English, install the English XML file. That's the scenario where most of your users have English language preference, but a few users have the French language. They would still see the menu in English, but everything else would be in French. If most of your users are the French language and you want the menus in French, then you can install the French XML file. All users will have the French menu, but the users within English language will still have the menu in French. So this is what it looks like on the Orchid website. You now have 2 installation files. You need to log on to the website, go to Product Download, select Sage Intacct, and you now have your EFT processing for Sage Intacct with the English menu and the French version. They are both the same except the translation of the menu. You do not need to install both, you install one or the other. Si la majorité des utilisateurs sélectionnent français comme langue préférée dans Sage Intacct, vous utilisez la version en français. You choose this application if most users have selected French, France or Canada as their preferred language in Sage Intacct. Otherwise, download the English version and the French users will still have the field translated into French. One thing to note is that the field labels on EFT Banks and on the Orchid EFT tab for vendor, customer and employees are set in the EFT format and not translated. So if you still see some fields in English, even though most of your users use French, go and check the EFT format or ask us for assistance with updating the EFT format. At this stage, the documentation in the online help is not translated in French, but we have included in the resources video section, select Sage Intacct in French, and we now have 2 detailed presentations of using Orchid's EFT for prélèvement client et paiement fournisseur. In today's presentation, we have demonstrated a range of new features in Orchid's EFT for Sage Intacct. uploading EFT files to SFTP, security enhancements, usability improvements, as well as the French translation. Most features we have discussed today are installed automatically when you download the new XML file and import it in the platform services. For example, the French translation. If you want to use the SFTP functionality, you need to subscribe to ORCID's SFTP service, contact ORCID or Robert Lavery for a quote. When you first install the update, no users will have permission to download or upload a file, so you need to go and add EFT permissions to all the required users. You can go and update banks to restrict which payment methods are available. By default, they will all be available if you are just upgrading to this update. If you want to start masking the bank details in EFT vendor, customer and employees, please contact ORCID for assistance with updating the format. While the focus was on the new features, we have covered most of the processes used to configure and use ORCID's EFT for Sage Intacct. Everything we have looked at today is described in detail in the online help. In particular, if you go to the EFT Processing release notes, you will see here the list of the new features, including a link to how to configure and use the new feature. If you're interested in purchasing, Sage partners can contact Robert Lavery in the Americas, UK and Ireland, or ORCID directly in all other regions, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, various Asian country, Africa. And all the details of the ordering process are on the partner FAQ site. Pricing is available on request from Robert Lavery or ORCID, but we'll go through an overview of the pricing model as a reminder for those of you who are not familiar with ORCID's pricing model. It is an annual subscription. All users need the core module, and then you can choose the functionality that you require. If you only do payments to vendors, you only buy vendor payments. If you need to SFTP as well, you purchase the SFTP, the subscription to the SFTP service as well. If you're doing vendor payments and customer direct debit and you want to SFTP some of the files, then you select those three options. The subscription comes with all the bank formats that we already have, and that's close to 1,000 now, and we create new formats at no extra cost. There is no individual transaction fee in EFT, except the bank fees charged by the bank. And we are now available for questions.